Have you ever looked at your life and thought, this isn't how it was supposed to be? You had dreams, timelines, and plans, but then, everything changed. The job you counted on slipped away. The person you trusted walked out. The door you prayed for never opened. And in that moment of confusion, it's easy to wonder, God, why did you let this happen? But what if I told you that what feels like a setback is actually a setup? That behind every delay, every disappointment, and every detour, there's a divine design unfolding? You see, God doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't forget. He doesn't abandon. And even when you can't understand the path, you can still trust the one who planned it. Because as it says in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So today, I want to remind you, your story isn't falling apart, it's falling into place. God's plan might look different than yours, but it's greater than anything you could ever imagine. There are moments in life when nothing seems to make sense. You pray, you plan, you pour your heart into something, and yet it all falls apart. You thought you had it figured out, but suddenly, the path you were walking on ends in confusion and silence. You lose the opportunity you worked so hard for. The relationship you thought would last forever crumbles before your eyes. The door you were certain God would open remains shut. And in those moments, it's easy to question everything, to wonder, God, why would you let this happen to me? But here's the truth, God's silence is not His absence. Just because you don't see Him working doesn't mean He isn't. Often, He's working behind the scenes, in places you can't see and in ways you wouldn't expect. You see, we want immediate answers, but God works with eternal vision. He's not just focused on where you are, He's preparing you for where you're meant to be. What feels like rejection today may actually be protection. What feels like a closed door might just be God keeping you from walking into something that would have destroyed you. It's human nature to want control, to know what's coming next, to understand why things happen the way they do. But faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about trusting the one who does. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord." Notice, God doesn't say you know the plan, He says He knows it. That means your uncertainty doesn't cancel out His sovereignty. He sees the bigger picture, the one your heart can't comprehend yet. Maybe right now you feel like your life is standing still, like everyone else is moving forward and you're stuck in the same place. But even in stillness, God is shaping you. Even in waiting, He's working on your heart, building your character, and preparing your path. He's teaching you patience, molding your faith, and aligning everything so that when the right moment comes, everything will fall into place, not by your strength, but by His grace. Sometimes, God allows a breakdown before a breakthrough. He lets certain things fall apart so that better things can come together. The pain you feel today might be the seed of purpose for tomorrow. The storm that scared you may be clearing the path for your blessing. You may not understand it now, but one day, you'll look back and realize that what felt like a setback was actually a setup for something greater. So when life doesn't make sense, don't lose heart. Don't give up on your faith just because the plan changed. Instead, hold on tighter. Trust that the one who designed the stars and gave you breath has not forgotten you. His plan hasn't failed, it's just unfolding. And when it does, you'll understand that His plan was better all along. Trusting God's process is one of the hardest things to do when you can't see any progress. We live in a world that celebrates instant results, quick answers, fast success, overnight change. But God's timing doesn't operate on our schedule. His process isn't about speed, it's about strengthening you for the promise. When it feels like life is standing still, when you've prayed and nothing changes, when you've cried and heaven seems silent, that's where real faith is tested. Faith is not proven in the mountaintop moments when everything feels right. Faith is proven in the valley, when you can't see the light, and you choose to trust anyway. You see, God's process often looks like delay, but delay doesn't mean denial. What looks like a pause is actually preparation. He's preparing you, shaping your heart, and developing the endurance needed for the promise He's leading you toward. Think of Joseph. He had a dream at 17, a divine promise that one day he would lead nations. But before the dream came true, he was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and forgotten in prison. To everyone around him, it looked like failure. But to God, it was formation. Every painful chapter was preparing Joseph for his destiny. If Joseph had been placed in the palace too soon, he wouldn't have been ready to handle the responsibility. God had to first take him through the process, to build humility, wisdom, and faith that could sustain the weight of His calling. And the same is true for you. You might feel buried, But you're not buried, you're planted. The difference is perspective. A seed that's buried dies, but a seed that's planted grows. The soil may feel dark and lonely, but something powerful is happening beneath the surface. God is nurturing you, pruning you, and preparing you to bloom in the right season. When the time comes, He will bring you out of that hidden place, not half prepared, but fully equipped. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us that God's plan is to prosper us, not to harm us. But prosperity doesn't always mean comfort. Sometimes, prosperity is built through pressure, because pressure produces growth. It's in the waiting that your faith becomes stronger. It's in the stillness that your roots go deeper. It's in the unseen moments that God is setting the stage for your breakthrough. So if you're in a season where everything feels quiet, trust Him anyway. If the answers haven't come, believe anyway. You may not see progress yet, but God sees purpose in your process. He's not ignoring your prayers, He's aligning the timing. Because when the promise finally arrives, it will make sense why every delay had to happen. Don't rush the process that's designed to bless you. God's timing is never late, it's always right on time. And one day, when everything unfolds, you'll realize that the waiting wasn't wasted, it was working. There comes a moment when you must stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start declaring, "God, I trust that you're using this for my good." Because the truth is, every disappointment, every closed door, and every detour has been leading you somewhere, not backward, but forward. God's plan doesn't always follow the path of comfort, it follows the path of calling. And when you finally surrender to that truth, peace begins to replace the pain. You see, the beauty of God's plan is that it doesn't depend on everything going right, it depends on you trusting Him even when everything feels wrong. He can take your broken pieces and build something beautiful out of them. What others meant for harm, He can turn into healing. What the enemy used to break you, God can use to bless you. Nothing in your life is wasted, not one tear, not one trial, not one heartbreak. Every moment you thought was lost, God has already written into your story as part of your victory. When God says in Jeremiah 29:11, "I know the plans I have for you," He isn't just speaking of an ordinary life, He's speaking of a life filled with divine purpose. You were never created just to survive, you were created to shine, to influence, to carry His light into dark places. That's why the process had to be tough, because your calling is powerful. God doesn't prepare ordinary warriors for extraordinary battles. He had to let you walk through some storms to make you strong enough to stand in your destiny. So now, it's time to step boldly into that plan. Not timidly, not fearfully, boldly. You might not have all the answers, but you have the author. You might not know the destination, but you know the one who leads the way. When you walk by faith, you don't need to see the whole staircase, you just need to take the next step. And with every step, God will reveal more. Maybe you're still waiting for clarity, but God says, move in faith. Maybe you're afraid of failure, but God says, I'm with you. Maybe you've been stuck in regret, replaying what went wrong, but God says, your past doesn't define you, my promise does. The truth is, God's plan is not behind schedule, it's right on time. Everything you've been through was not to break you, but to build you. He was preparing you for this very moment, the moment you stop doubting and start walking. So lift your head, square your shoulders, and walk boldly into the future God has designed for you. Because one day soon, you'll look back and say, now I understand. The struggle had purpose. The pain had meaning. And through it all, God's plan was better than mine. In every season of confusion, heartbreak, or delay, remember this, God's hand has never left your life. The closed doors, the detours, the waiting, they were never meant to destroy you, they were meant to develop you. The same God who spoke through Jeremiah still speaks today, I know the plans I have for you. You may not see it now, but everything is coming together, every tear, every trial, every test. One day, you'll realize that what you called a failure was God's foundation for your future. So keep walking, even when you don't understand. Keep believing, even when it's hard. Because God's plan isn't just good, it's perfect, it's personal, and it's right on time. And when His plan unfolds, you'll look back and whisper, Lord, you really did have a better plan.